let's start with the first one, by category. Okay, so what do we mean by category? Well, by category we mean, for example, walls category, or windows categories, or doors. So by setting a material for a specific category like walls, for example, each time you create a wall, the material you selected for that category is assigned to it. Okay, so if you create a 3D model but do not apply a specific material to it, what Revit does is that it actually will use the category material if you have assigned any material to that specific category. Okay, so you may or may not assign a material to a category. Now let's create a new project. We'll use architectural template. Okay, now let's see how we can do that, how you can assign a material to a category. Okay, so first you need to go to Manage tab, and then in this settings panel you need to select Object Styles. Okay, so let me try something else. The quick command to Object Style is VB, and then from here at the bottom just select Object Styles. Okay, so this is the Object Styles window. In the Object Style you get a list of all the categories in your Revit project, and they are grouped into a few different tabs. Okay, so this one, this one, this one, and here we are going to focus on Model Objects tab, and here actually is the list of all the model categories that we have. Okay, so everything in your model fits in a category in here, and you can assign a material to a particular category. Okay, so as you can see, we have a material column here, and as you double click on one of the cells, these three dots show up, and as you click on this, the material browser window will show up. Okay, so you can find a material that you want and select it, and then just hit OK. So whatever you change here from Object Style, that change applies globally throughout the project in every view. Okay, so everything starts from Object Style, and then we start modifying from there. So imagine that you set a material like wood, for example, for doors category here. Okay, we have doors category over here, but you may create a door and assign a metal material to that. Okay, so now which one will Revit use? Wood material that was assigned globally through Object Style, or the metal which was assigned specifically to that element? Well, I should say assigning material by element takes precedence over Object Style. Okay, so it is not that much important to set the materials by category. Now let's move to the second method, that is assigning materials by elements. Whenever you create an element in Revit, such as a door, for example, in the project browser you are able to set a material specifically for that object. Okay, so let's insert a door right now. Okay, for example, here in the project in the properties palette, you can set the frame material and finish material for this door. Okay, nothing actually shows up in the drop down menu, but if you go to the edit type, here in the material section you can change the door material and frame material. Okay, just by clicking on these. So if I change the material here, not all the doors that are inserted in my project will change. Okay, the only ones that will change actually are these single flush 36 by 84-inch doors. Okay, only this type will change in my project. So this is the way we assign a material by element, and this is the most common way actually for assigning materials. Well, one thing that I want to mention here about elements is that what we just talked about applies to both system families and loadable families. Okay, you can find these in your book. Okay, so system families are things like walls, floors, ceilings, and things like these that cannot exist outside of a project. Okay, and to edit materials for these, you need to select your element first. Now let's, for now, create a wall. So brick on CMU, for example. Let's create this wall. Next, select it and go to Edit Type. Okay. Now, in the Material and Finishes section, you can see that you are not able to edit this material, okay, from here. And it is saying that the structural material is concrete masonry unit. So, in order to change the structural material, you need to go to the Structure tab here, Structure row actually, over here, and just click Edit. Now you are inside the Edit Assembly window, okay? And you are able to edit materials for different layers of the wall. Here we can see the different layers of the wall, okay? So for example, you can change the finish material on the outside from here, or the finish on the inside from here, or even the structure part of the wall. You can change it from here, okay? Let's just cancel this. So now, what are the loadable families and how we can change their materials by element? Okay, so loadable families are the ones which are either created by you in the family editor environment in your project, or just somebody else has created them and you could load them into your project, like a piece of furniture, for example, or a door. So, for example, if a steel case has a chair that you are interested in and want to load it into your project, you can do that. Okay, so if you want to load a new project, load a new object actually, you can go to the Insert tab and then load a family from here. Okay, you can find different chairs, different furniture, and many things. Or you can just come here in the Architecture tab, you can come and click on this component. So as it's showing over here, this places an element in the building model based on a selected element type. Okay, so just click on this and we have different things here that you can choose. For now, let's insert the chair from here. Okay, so insert, load family, and then I will choose this chair tablet arm, okay? This one. And then you just need to place it into your project. And if I go to the 3D view, I can see it here. So when you or someone else in a steel case, for example, is creating a chair like this, you can either pick a material for an element of this family, like its legs, for example, or employ a material parameter for it. So now let's explain this further. The person who creates a family has total authority over what to choose for the material and to what extent give permission to the person using it to change them, okay? So now imagine that the person who created this chair or family pick a material and set the material for the legs in a way that nobody can change it. So in this way, you are not able to change it in your project. You can only do it in the family editor, and we will talk about that later on, okay? So, but at the same time, she or he may employ the material parameter for the seat and back of the chair, okay? This way you as a user will be able to change the seat and back material in type properties here, or just in instance, sometimes in instance properties over here. Okay. So you see the difference? Well, in the first condition, which is picking a material, the person who loads that family into her or his project will not be able to change the material. But in the second one, you have the option to change it. Now, they might even limit your choices. For example, they might say that we have this chair only in 2 versions, for example, either in red leather or gray one. So they might limit your choices of materials to these 2 only. It actually totally depends on the family creator decisions. In loadable families, every 3D element has a material parameter. Okay? So now let's move on to the next method of assigning a material, which is by face. Now let's see what is a face. Well, for that, let's get back to this wall we drew. Now, if you imagine this wall as a box, you can see that it has 6 sides actually. Okay, so which means it has 6 faces. So it has 6 sides, and that means it has 6 faces. Top face, bottom, left, right, front, and back. Now in Revit, we have the ability to change a material by face. So go to one of the elevations, south elevation, and change the visual style to realistic. Okay? Well, the way we change a material by face is actually by using the paint tool. Okay? There is one important thing here you should pay attention to, and make sure to just write it down. Okay? When you change a material by face, for example, if I paint this raw brick, it wouldn't have information stored inside of it. Okay, so it would just look like brick. It will not allow us to, for example, calculate cost or amount of the brick we need. So painting is good for appearances, but it's not a good method to use if you need to, for example, calculate a material or how absorptive the wall is. So adding material with paint, which is actually by face, adds no information to your model. It just changes the appearance of your model. Now let's see how we can do that. Okay, so go to Modify tab, and here in the Geometry panel, select this paint tool. Okay, and as you can see, it's a split button. So if you click here, you can see that we have 2 options, paint and remove paint. So you can just choose one of these. Okay. Well, as soon as you select the paint tool, you can see that the material browser window will pop up. So this is the exact same material browser window we had before, just this one is a little bit more compact and condensed. So you just need to select your material. Do not hit done button yet because you're not done yet. So select the material, for example, this brick over here, and then hover over the wall and just click on the face you want, and it's done. Okay, so now if you decide to remove the paint, now you can click done. Okay, now if you decide to remove the paint, you just need to come back to the same place again and select remove paint. Okay, from here just select remove paint and just click on it, and that's done. So that was how we could use paint tool to paint faces. Okay, now I want to show you a problem you will probably face when you're using the paint tool. So let's go to the level 1 view. Now imagine that we have a series of offices here. So let's add some wall over here. So we want to have a series of offices here. So let's say, for example, Okay, so for example, we have office 1, 2, 3, and 4 over here. Now let's switch to the elevation view. Okay, from here you can see that we are able to see the back of the wall of these offices, and that face is actually shared between all these offices. Okay, so now I may decide to change the color of the back of the wall in this office. For example, I want the first one to be yellow, for example, the second one to be red, and etc. Right now, if I choose the paint tool, okay, go to and then just change the color of this face. Let me choose a color, this one for example. You can see that the whole face color has changed. Okay, so we don't have the wall of these offices separately. So adding these partitions over here will not divide the back wall automatically. Okay, so in order to be able to have separate faces or separate office walls, we need to split that face of the wall in the back. So now in order to do that, you need to go to the Modify tab again, and here we have the Split Face button. Okay, so just click on a split face, and as you can see here, it is saying that select the face to split into regions. So you just need to select the face that you want to split. So as soon as you select the face, okay, you can see this orange line around the selected area, okay, around the face that is selected. So this shows the boundary of the face we selected. First, let's remove the material at first, the paint. Okay, so come here and remove paint. Okay, you can keep it. I just wanted to show you this way. So select the split face, select the face. Now we need to use one of these drawing options in order to specify the region we want to split. One more thing that I want to mention here is that, as you can see, we are in the sketch mode right now. So as soon as you select the face, you will switch to the sketch mode. And how we know that actually? Well, by seeing these two check mark and X marks. Okay, and as you should remember, we cannot get out of the sketch mode unless we hit either check or X buttons. So now I want to show you an error that may pop up here. Okay, so let's first try drawing with this rectangle tool. Okay, I want to select this region, so just select this and hit check. Okay, so these errors will pop up here, and what it actually is saying is that the area you are drawing intersects or overlaps some part of the face's edge. So what you're drawing should not overlap or intersect that orange boundary of the face. Okay, so now let's cancel this and try once again with the pick lines, this time. Okay, this one. So first let's out of this. Select the split face again, select the face, and use this one, pick line, and I'm gonna use this and these two lines. Okay, and then just hit check, and it should be done actually. Well, next I'm going to paint it, okay, so you can see the difference. So go to Modify tab again and just select the paint. Select paint and just hit here, okay, just click here, and now you can see that this face is actually separate from the one beside it. Now let's try this again and use other methods of drawing. Okay, so click split face, select this face, and choose circle, for example, this time. Let's draw a circle, check, and then apply a material by paint. Well, there are some important things you should pay attention to while drawing these boundaries, okay? So, for example, if you want to edit a boundary, you just need to select it, for example, this circle, and then hit Edit Boundary over here, and then you are able to edit it in the sketch mode again, okay? Or you can just go to Split Face again. So a couple of things here to pay attention to, okay? So you cannot draw a circle over the shape you drew before, okay? This will just confuse Revit and you should avoid it, okay? You cannot do this. If you hit check, it just does not allow you to do that. One other thing that you are not able to do here is actually that you cannot draw, for example, you cannot draw two circles, or it's better to say two closed loops at one time, okay? So if you try to draw two circles at just one time and then hit check, it will show you an error. So what you do is to just draw one circle, hit check, select split face again, select the face, draw one other circle, and then hit check again. Okay? That is what you should do. That is actually what you can do. So this is how a split face works and helps us with painting. Now you might have this question that where can I use it? Well, I'll show you some examples that helps you to get the idea. Well, for example, in this image, you can see that you can split the walls from this line and then apply different materials to them. Or you can split the wall from these two lines and just apply different materials. Or this wall from here, and we have again two different materials. Or even you can split the floor material or even ceiling, and then you can see the difference in materials. So as we have seen, a split face is quite useful in modeling, and you will need it a lot. So make sure to learn just how to work with that, okay? And consider that you can split any face from walls to ceilings to floors, etc. So up to now, we have learned that we can apply materials in 3 different ways, okay? So by category, by element, and by face. Now let's talk about materials. Just go to Manage tab, and from here, Settings panel, select Material Browser. And this is the Material Browser window, okay? So you may want to make it larger. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so here is a list of predefined materials. Okay, so this is what pretty much every Revit file comes in with. One thing to mention right up here at the start is actually if you delete one of these by mistake, okay, they are kind of tricky to get back. So these are the defaults and never ever delete them because they are important and hard to replace once they are gone. You can see that here at the left we have some default materials. So for example, brick, carpet, ceilings, cherry wood, and etc. There is also a search bar at the top that you can search whatever category that you want. For example, you can search for concrete materials. Concrete. Okay, so you can see the concrete materials here. So if you're looking for a specific material, you can search it over here. You can also from here filter by category. For example, you want to find a concrete material, so just select concrete here, and then it will show you all the materials in that category, and you can switch to all again. Okay. So now what is this part at the right? Well, actually this shows the properties of whatever material you choose on the left. For example, if I select this brick over here, I can see the options and settings related to this brick here. And you can see that we have 5 tabs here, but if I just choose carpet, you can see that we have 3 tabs just right here. Now let's select one and get into the detail here. Okay, so let's click this brick comment and go to the identity tab. Okay, we'll go over all of these tabs and just to see what they cover. In the identity tab, we have information about the name of the material, the cost, and some general information that you can enter here. So for example, this one is common brick and it is in masonry class. You can add comments and keywords, who is the manufacturer, how much is the cost per square foot, and here you can add a link. The second tab here is graphics. This tab has to do with the appearance and how different materials appear on the screen and how they show up in print. So the first part, which is shading, tells you how this material looks when your visual style is set to shaded. You can remember that we had different visual styles, yes. So this is how this particular material, okay, looks in the shaded style. It will be in this particular color. If you want to change it, you can just click on it and select another color and then hit OK. You can also add a transparency value here if you want it to be transparent in the shading style, or you can change it from here. There is also a checkbox here that you can check if you want it to look exactly the same way it looks in the render. Okay, so I'm just saying it will slow down your computer, and it's better not to select it unless there is a situation that you need to do it anyway. The other two sections, surface pattern and cut pattern, has to do with whether we see the surface of a material either in an elevation or a plan view, or a cut through a material like in a section where we cut a brick wall. The surface pattern has more to do with what does a material look like in hidden line Or what does it look like when it's in elevation or floor plan view? You can change the pattern by clicking on it. So you can choose a pattern from here. You can also change the color again. So anytime an object's surface with this brick material, for example, is visible in a view, you can see this color and pattern, okay, in this section, in this surface pattern. You can also adjust the alignment, okay, here you can adjust the alignment of the surface pattern. You will do this in your homework and the book will say what to do exactly, okay? Next section is cut pattern, and this controls how your material look like when it is cut through, like in a section, for example. The same thing is here, and you can click and change the color and the pattern. The next tab is appearance, and it has to do with render appearance. So if you want to see how your brick wall looks like when it's rendered, you can see it here. So here again are some information that you can enter. And next is the category. So this material is under the masonry category. And in finish, you can just select how you want the finish to look like. Do you want it to be glossy, matte, or unfinished? And below that, we have a relief pattern. Whenever you have a material, two things are happening. So one is, what does it look like? So it's like a flat image that we have it just right here, okay? This is just a flat image. The other one is the relief pattern. This is the texture piece behind that flat image, okay? So if you have a bump, that is related to this relief pattern. So this pattern gives texture to our flat image. It has information about where are shadows and highlights in the image. So this image at the top is the actual flat image, and the other one in grayscale is the texture of the material. And the last section is tints. If you want your material to have a specific tint, you can add it here. So you may want your material to have a gray tint. So you can just choose whatever color you want from here. The next tab is physical, and you probably won't use it very often. Here you can control the mechanical aspects of a material, like how dense the brick is. And the last tab for this specific material is thermal. Here you can find thermal properties of the material, for example, its reflectivity, porosity, and so on. This would be more for times when somebody wants to run, for example, an energy analysis. Now let's come back to the appearance tab. I want to show you something here. So we have our material image here. If you pull this little arrow down here and click edit image, you could edit the image from here. And the other way to just open that window is to just click on this image, okay? So you are going to actually do it in your homework, okay? In this window, you can find some of the settings related to this material image that you can change them right here. For example, let me pull this down. For example, the scale of the image. If you want it to be larger or smaller. If you want to rotate the image, for example, and things like that. So right below the image, on the material image, is a hyperlink. If you click on this hyperlink, it actually takes you to the material folder in your computer, okay? You can switch the view to thumbnail. Okay, you can see the materials here. or we sometimes call them maps. Okay, so we have many patterns here. We have wood patterns, ceiling tiles, and brick patterns, and many other things here. These patterns are not specific to a manufacturer, and they are just generic patterns that you can use in your model. You can yourself explore these materials and see what you can find here, okay? So let me just close it. So you saw that we had a small initial library here, but you have the ability to make a lot of other materials in Revit. So now if we choose carpet in the project materials, we can see that we have less number of tabs here. And some of the options are just different. For example, you can see that we have bump here instead of the relief pattern. So these options and settings change based on the material that you have selected from here. Now let's see what other options we have in this material browser window. Okay, so if you click on this arrow at the bottom, you can pull up another material library which gives you even more options for having materials. So for example, here you can select glass, ceramic, or whatever category that you want. And for example, if I go to the masonry category, I can select the material that I want from here. Okay, so we have even more materials here, and if I want to have this material in my main library over here at the top, you can just hit this. You can select the material, hit this up arrow, and then we will have it over here. Okay, you can add it to your main library. So this material section at the top is everything that you have inside of your project, and it is actually called project materials. And this one at the bottom is material library. So if you want a material that is not available in your project, you can either create one or come here and just load it from the material library. One more thing here is that when you search here in the search bar, it will search both in the project materials and material library. Okay, there are lots of buttons over here that you can just explore to organize these library, so you can go over them yourself. Okay, so you can switch the view, or you can change the you can select the categories from here. Now let's see what else do we have here. There is this button at the bottom that when you hit it, it will open the asset browser. Okay, so this has to do more with the appearance rather than the material. So if you click on this button over here, you can replace this material, this appearance asset, with what you have in the material that is selected. Okay, so right now this is our assets, appearance asset, and if we want to replace it, you can just hit this and you can see that it has been replaced. Okay, and just make sure not to save over your defaults in the project. Okay, not the same way that I did it. Do not do that. Okay, do not save it over your defaults, never. Now, how can we create a new material? I just said that do not save over your defaults, so how we are supposed to create a new one? So here we are going to go over some really important things, so make sure to pay attention and follow along. Now, what are the steps for creating a new material? First, you need to start with something similar. Okay, so if you want to create a new carpet material, I would recommend that you start with an existing carpet. Now, why is that? Well, the reason is the settings in the existing carpet material, okay, these settings are all set in a way that we can have a realistic carpet. Now, you may just want to have a carpet with a different pattern. This way, you just need to edit it to match with what you are looking for. The second step is to duplicate the existing similar material. And then you can just right-click, duplicate it, and then you can just rename it to whatever you want. For example, carpet 2. And the next step, which is the very next thing you should do, is duplicating the asset from here. Okay, this is very important. Just write this down and circle it. Otherwise, you will encounter a mess in your project, okay? So to duplicate an asset, you need to click on this double paper button at the top, okay? You just need to click on it. You may not see what has changed here except this little 1 number over here. So let's explain what happens when you do this, and this is very important. So before we duplicate the asset, these two carpet materials were linked. So whatever change I made to carpet would also change in carpet 2. But by hitting this duplicate asset button, it breaks that link, and there are now two separate materials that we can change. So you'll find more information about this in the book. Now let's go over the steps again. So we will start with the first one. We will start with a similar material. The second step is duplicating the material itself, okay? And then the last step is to duplicate the appearance asset. So make sure this double paper button is selected. Now let's cancel this and get back to the 3D view. And then go to the Architecture tab and insert this desk, okay? Just place it somewhere. Now I'm going to rotate the view so we can see it better, and change this to realistic. Okay. Now I want to see what this object's material look like. So select the desk and go to Edit Type. And here in the material section, we can see the different materials. So we may want to change this cherry material. Okay, just click on these 3 dots. And from here, we can change it, for example, to wood stained. So now it's important to make a duplicate of this material. Okay. Rename it, and just remember, this is very important. Never change generic and default materials, okay? Always create a duplicate and then change the material. Now you may want to add a tint to its appearance. So for example, blue tint maybe, and then just hit OK. Now you can see the difference here, okay? Just hit apply and OK, and then OK. And now you are able to see the difference. You can see this blue tint in this wood material. So we always have this option to customize materials inside Revit and use them, and that makes this process very easy and fast. Just do not forget to duplicate a material if you want to change it, okay?